Ever get that gnawing worry,
Yeah.
in the back of your mind? Especially when you flush the toilet in your home, if you got a septic tank.
Oh, yeah. That moment of hesitation.
It's like, is everything going to keep flowing okay, or am I, like, one bad flush away from well, a disaster?
A messy one, usually.
So today, we're diving deep into something that might just help with those fears. Septic tank maintenance. And specifically, a product called Septifix.
Right. It's a feeling a lot of homeowners know. I mean, your septic system is absolutely crucial, right? But it's also kind of invisible, out of sight, out of mind.
Until it's not out of mind. Until something goes wrong.
Exactly. And when it stops working, it's a real headache. And, often a pretty expensive one, too.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about those times you catch a whiff of something.
Yeah.
Well, unpleasant.
Yeah.
Maybe out in the backyard.
Yeah. Not ideal.
Or when the drains just seem a bit sluggish.
Yeah.
And the thought of backups, the ick factor of sludge and clogs.
Definitely icky.
And let's not forget the drain on your wallet from getting it pumped out all the time. It adds up. It's a lot of potential stress.
For sure.
So our deep dive today is into this Septifix. And our goal is really just to understand what it claims to do. Could it actually be a legitimate way to tackle these common septic system issues?
And maybe do it without needing a PhD in wastewater management to figure it all out.
Please. So we'll be looking at what Septifix actually is, the science, or the claims they make about how it works, and what some people who've actually used it are saying. Think of it as us sifting through the info to give you the clear picture.
Let's do it. Where do we start? The problems.
Yeah, let's paint that picture first.
Yeah.
The problem Septifix is supposed to solve. We saw stories from people like John out in L.A.
Okay.
He was dealing with a tank that was clearly failing. And the smell. He said it was so bad he felt like he couldn't even have people over. Even his grandkids didn't want to visit.
Wow, that's bad. That really affects your life.
Totally. Then there was Kathy in Vermont. She was actually really on top of things, getting it pumped regularly.
Doing the right thing, you'd think.
Right. But she was still told there was a significant buildup. Solids, clogs, even with regular pumping. Makes you wonder if pumping alone is always the full answer, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, those are textbook signs, aren't they? The system isn't breaking down waste efficiently. So those solids just accumulate, the tank capacity goes down, you get blockages, and then those nasty odors from anaerobic decomposition.
Anaerobic, meaning without oxygen.
Exactly. That's when bacteria that don't need oxygen take over, and the byproducts aren't pleasant. And Kathy's story shows, even regular pumping might not fix the basic biological balance if it's off.
And then you've got folks like Michael in Florida. He brought up another big one. The cost, the constant cost of pumping.
Ah, yes, the wallet hit.
He was paying close to $500 every single year.
Oof, that's a significant chunk of change for maintenance.
Definitely. So into this world of, smelly, clogged, expensive septic systems, here comes Septifix, promising something, well, maybe better, simpler.
So what exactly is this stuff?
Good question. Septifix is described as a solid tablet, and they really emphasize that it's environmentally safe, and it releases oxygen.
Oxygen releasing. Okay, interesting.
And it's designed for monthly use. Pretty simple concept, actually. You just flush one down the toilet once a month.
Flush and forget. Well, hopefully not forget completely.
Right. Flush and maintain. But yeah, the idea is it gets to work in your tank to fix those issues we talked about.
Okay, so no messy liquids, no complicated setups, just a tablet.
Seems like it. But okay, how does this little tablet supposedly tackle all those big problems? The smell, the sludge, the backups. Let's dig into the how it works part. First up, odors. That backyard ruining smell.
Right. The claim there is that when the Septifix tablet dissolves, it releases oxygen, like you said. And this oxygen supposedly reacts directly with those stinky things, specifically hydrogen sulfides, the rotten egg smell culprits.
Got it.
And they suggest you should notice a difference pretty fast. Like within about 3 to 5 days, the smell should start disappearing.
3 to 5 days.
Yeah.
That's a bold claim for anyone who lives with septic stink.
It gets quick, yeah.
Okay, what about the sludge and those clogs like Kathy was still getting even though she was pumping?
Well, according to the info, Septifix contains, get this, 14 different strains of aerobic bacteria.
Aerobic again. Needs oxygen.
Exactly. And in a really high concentration, they say over 10 billion per gram. That's a lot of bacteria.
10 billion per gram. Okay. So these are the good guys.
They're positioned as the heroes, yeah. These aerobic bacteria are claimed to just chow down on all sorts of organic waste. Sludge, grease, oils, even toilet paper.
Hmm.
Essentially, they're like a super efficient cleanup crew, digesting all that buildup that causes clogs and reduces how much your tank can actually hold.
So it's like adding reinforcements,
Mhm.
a specialized team.
That's a good way to put it. And the source also mentions something else pretty important, that Septifix claims it destroys harmful bacteria, too.
Harmful bacteria. Like what?
Things like E. coli, salmonella,
Right.
other pathogens that can thrive in septic tanks, especially those low-oxygen anaerobic environments.
Okay, that sounds serious and important from a health angle.
Absolutely. It's a big point. These anaerobic bacteria can be a real worry if they leach out and contaminate groundwater, potentially affecting family health.
Yikes. Definitely don't want that. So the idea that this tablet could, like, make the whole system healthier,
Mm,
that's a big plus.
for sure.
So beyond just cleaning and killing bad bugs, it sounds like it's also meant to be preventative,
Hmm.
stopping backups, clogs, even corrosion before they start. Is that right?
That's the general idea, yes. By breaking down the gunk and keeping the environment oxygen-rich and balanced, it supposedly prevents that solid accumulation that leads to backups and clogs in the first place.
Okay.
They also mention it might help reduce corrosion in the system, though. The details on how exactly weren't super specific in what we saw.
Gotcha. And the big one for many homeowners, I bet, reducing or maybe even skipping the pump truck visits.
Ah, yes. Back to Michael in Florida and his $500 annual bill.
Right. The info we have highlights he was pretty happy about maybe not needing the pumper so often,
Mm-hmm.
saving hundreds a year, potentially.
Makes sense.
And we also heard about a Jason in Massachusetts. Apparently, he used to pump his system every, like, 12 to 14 months.
Pretty standard interval for some.
Yeah. But he hasn't needed to pump it at all since he started using Septifix back in 2019.
Since 2019, wow, okay, that is a significant change. If true, that's, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. The logic is sound. I mean, if those bacteria are really doing their job breaking down the solids effectively, then less sludge builds up over time. So naturally, you wouldn't need to pump as often, which, like you said, leads to potentially big cost savings.
It's always interesting, too, to hear the backstory. Where did this stuff come from? The source mentions a guy named Richard V., apparently owned a plumbing company.
Yeah, saw the problems firsthand, it seems. His clients dealing with expensive, messy septic issues.
Right. So it sounds like it came from wanting to fix a real problem he was seeing all the time.
Which is often how good solutions start, isn't it? He
Wow.
wasn't just, mixing stuff in his garage. He saw people struggling, wanted a proactive way to help them avoid repairs and the general unpleasantness.
And then he partnered with the university and put some serious money into research. They mentioned $1.5 million over 3 years.
Yeah, $1.5 million. That definitely suggests they were serious. It wasn't just a casual project. It implies, some real effort went into understanding the science and trying to optimize the formula.
Okay, so let's talk about proof, evidence, claims of effectiveness. The source mentioned a video, supposedly showing 2 tanks cleaned up in just 3 weeks with only 3 tablets.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't watch the video here, but that's the claim. Pretty remarkable if accurate.
Very. And the basis for that claim, like we talked about, seems to be that huge number of bacteria
The 10 billion per gram, yeah.
combined with the oxygen the tablet releases. How much oxygen did they say?
Up to 10 liters per tablet, which, on a microbial level inside a tank, that's actually quite a bit of oxygen being introduced.
And that oxygen seems crucial, right? Not just for the smell, but it works with something else, sodium carbonate.
Right. The oxygen boosts the good aerobic bacteria, makes them work better. And the sodium carbonate, it acts like a buffer. It helps neutralize the pH of the wastewater.
Why is pH important?
Well, keeping the pH stable and sort of neutral, that's generally the sweet spot for most of these beneficial bacteria to do their best work.
Okay, makes sense. They also claim Septifix raises oxygen levels way more than, like, manual aeration, something like 75% more.
Yeah, that was another claim. A significant boost compared to physically trying to aerate the tank. And they mentioned the technology lets the tablets sink down.
Right, into the sludge.
Exactly. Embed in the sludge layer and treat the whole tank from the bottom up, which, makes sense. Target the problem where it lives.
Yeah, you want it down there, not just floating on top.
If it just sits on the surface, it's not going to be nearly as effective breaking down that accumulated stuff underneath.
The source also threw out some big numbers, like 21,000 plus supposedly worry-free septic owners using Septifix, and an 87% repeat buyer rate, which That's high.
It is high. Now, you always have to take self-reported stats like that with maybe a little grain of salt, but
Sure.
an 87% repeat rate, if accurate, does strongly suggest that most people who try it feel it works well enough to buy it again. That's usually a good sign.
And to give a feel for what people are seeing, they shared a couple more examples. Charles D. in Boston, he said Septifix actually fixed clogs and got rid of odors after other products failed him.
That's interesting. Suggests maybe there is something different about its action or potency compared to typical over-the-counter stuff, that oxygen and bacteria combo, perhaps.
Could be. And then Paul A. in North Carolina, he noticed way less solid waste in his tank after just a few months, which made him think he wouldn't need to pump nearly as often. Again, tying back to that potential cost saving.
So these stories, while anecdotal, they do line up with the main claims, don't they? Reducing odor, breaking down solids, potentially leading to less pumping.
Yeah, they paint a consistent picture. Now, let's touch on that more serious side, again, the danger angle. The source really emphasized that failing septic systems are a big source of groundwater contamination.
Yeah, this is critical. It's not just about your own yard smelling bad or your drains backing up.
Right.
A failing system can seriously impact the environment and public health. Untreated wastewater gets into the ground, maybe into drinking water sources. It's a big deal. And that difference between aerobic and anaerobic bacteria is key here.
Remind us again.
Aerobic, the good guys, need oxygen, break waste down cleanly. Anaerobic don't need oxygen, work slower, produce smells, and potentially harmful pathogens. You want the aerobic ones winning.
And the claim is Septifix helps with that balance. The aerobic bacteria plus the oxygen helps neutralize the bad stuff.
That's the claim, promoting the good guys, suppressing the bad. They even mentioned a hepatitis A outbreak linked to failing septic systems as, like, a worst-case scenario example.
Whoa, okay, that definitely drives home the health risks.
It really highlights why maintaining a healthy microbial balance in the tank matters and how adding oxygen could potentially help achieve that.
Now, here's a really bold claim they made, that independent labs found water quality from systems using Septifix was better than water from advanced municipal treatment plants.
Yeah, that's a very strong statement. Extraordinary, really.
It sounds almost unbelievable.
It does suggest incredible effectiveness, if true. But, without seeing the actual lab reports, the methodology, the specifics, it's hard to fully evaluate that claim. It's a big one, though.
For sure. And look, it's totally understandable that people listening might hear all this, the quick results, the bacteria counts, stopping pumping, and think, yeah, right, sounds too good to be true.
Absolutely. Healthy skepticism is always good.
So how does the source address that? How do they try to ease that skepticism?
Well, the main thing they point to is a 60-day money-back guarantee.
Ah, the guarantee.
Yeah, it's pretty standard practice for building trust. Basically says, try it. If you don't think it works, like we said, get your money back. It lowers the barrier to entry for someone who's interested but hesitant.
Makes sense. Let's talk cost then. What's the deal? You mentioned monthly tablets.
Right. They offer different packages, looks like 6-month, 12-month, and 18-month supplies.
And the price goes down if you buy more.
Yeah, seems like the cost per tablet is lower if you commit to a longer supply, like the 18-month one. And they really frame it in terms of value, comparing the cost, which they say comes out under $9 a month for the biggest package.
Under $9 a month.
Okay, comparing that to the hundreds you might spend on pumping each year or potential thousands on repairs if things go really wrong, they pitch it as peace of mind.
Peace of mind for under $9 a month versus a potential $500 pumping bill or worse. That's the value proposition.
That's how they frame it, yeah.
And interesting point, the source says you can only buy it direct from their website, not in stores.
Yeah, that's what they state.
Why? What's the reason they give for that?
They give a couple of reasons. One, cutting out middlemen retailers lets them offer discounts directly to the customer.
Right.
And two, they claim it ensures you get the genuine, potent product, with that specific formula, the high bacteria count, the oxygen release, the pH stuff. And they kind of contrast it with other, maybe cheaper, over-the-counter treatments you might find elsewhere, suggesting those might be less effective because they lack those specific components or have lower concentrations.
So their argument is buy direct to get the real deal, properly formulated, more powerful stuff compared to generic options.
That seems to be the rationale, yes. Positioning it as a more premium, comprehensive solution you get straight from the source.
Okay. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the common septic headaches, how Septifix claims to fix them, the science they talk about.
To bacteria, the oxygen.
Right. The stories from users, the potential health aspects,
Yeah.
the environmental angle, the
Yeah.
cost. Let's just try and boil it down. Quick recap. What are the main promises of Septifix based on everything we've looked at?
Okay, in a nutshell, the key claims are, 1, getting rid of those bad septic odors supposedly pretty quickly.
Right. Odor elimination.
2, significantly breaking down and reducing sludge and other gunk in the tank.
Sludge reduction. Got it.
3, preventing backups and clogs in your pipes and system.
Prevention. Yep.
4, cutting down how often you need to pump the tank, maybe even eliminating it for some, which saves money.
Reduce pumping, cost savings.
Mhm.
Big one.
And sort of underpinning it all, destroying harmful bacteria and promoting a healthier overall septic system, which could also be better for the environment around your home.
Okay. That covers the main claims pretty well.
Yeah, that's the package they're presenting.
So we've laid out what we found in the source material. It really leaves you with a question, doesn't it? What's the real cost? Maybe not just in dollars, but in, like, stress and worry of not being proactive about your septic tank.
That's a good point. The cost of inaction.
Yeah. And could something as simple as flushing a tablet once a month actually be the answer, or at least part of it? It's definitely something to mull over. Maybe worth exploring more based on your own situation, your own system. Then maybe doing a little more digging yourself.
Food for thought, definitely.